We've got some intriguing Truck Series silly season news to talk about. Erik Jones is testing the next gen car right now pretty much. And NASCAR's made it official. They are changing the Aero package for 2020. We've got a lot to discuss. We're back. Might look a little bit different, but we're back. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Yeah, so I know everything looks a little bit weird right here. The lighting is strange. I got this really bright lamp. Look at this thing. Oh, it is bright. We're working on it. It's a work in progress here. It's a new apartment. I'm in the process of moving. I live in Los Angeles now, Hollywood. Finishing up my last semester of college, so that's why I've been doing so much moving lately. Things have just been crazy. I was living on the East Coast for a few months. Now I'm living on the West Coast for a few months, maybe longer, we shall see. Yeah, I'm not sure about the decor in here yet, but it's all a work in progress. So thank you all a ton for bearing with me, but we're back with our regularly scheduled programming for the most part here. We're back with Out of the Groove. I'm planning to go to some racetracks. Might make it out to Auto Club here in a few weeks, or yeah, we're only a few weeks away at this point. I've never been out there, but now that I'm in the area, might as well make a trip out to Auto Club, but I'm still working on my 2020 plans. Anyway, we have a lot to discuss because I haven't done a video in 4 or 5 days, something like that, so we have a lot of things to discuss. As I'm recording this video, as I'm editing and uploading this video, Erik Jones is testing the next gen car at 1.5 miles down in Miami, so that's exciting. But we're not going to start with that. Let's start with some Truck Series silly season news that I wanted to catch up on from the last couple days. Some big name drivers, some big name young drivers at least, going new places here this year. So first and foremost, defending K&N West Series champion Derek Kraus will be racing full-time in the Truck Series this year. He'll be driving the number 19 truck for the newly formed McNally Hillsman Racing. It'll be a Toyota team aligned with Hattori Racing Enterprises. Hattori Racing won the championship in 2018 with Brett Moffitt. They won 4 races last year with Austin Hill. That's a top team in the Truck Series that Derek Kraus will be driving, in a line team. But it'll be interesting to see Derek Kraus in solid Truck Series equipment. I'm a big Derek Kraus fan. He's 18 years old. He's very young. He's from Wisconsin. And he's been dynamite in both the K&N West and the K&N East Series the last couple of years. He won 4 K&N West races in 2018. He won 5 races this year in 2019 and the championship. And this last year, he only made 9 K&N East starts, but he did win 2 of those races as well. So very impressive numbers from a very young and kind of low-profile driver. He drove for the same team that Hailie Deegan drove for last year, and obviously Deegan dominated many of the headlines. I'm partially guilty of that as well. She's interesting. When she won races, she won them in an exciting way. But despite kind of being in her shadow a lot of last year, he did best her for the points championship. He won more races. He was the best driver in the K&N series last year, at least the K&N West and arguably the K&N East side as well. So I'm excited to see Derek Kraus get an opportunity in a solid truck next year. This year. It's 2020 already. Yeah, my gosh. It's this year. Just a few weeks. Anyway, other Truck Silly season news. Todd Gilliland has a ride. Finally, things have been pretty quiet on the Todd Gilliland front, but sure enough, he will be in the Truck Series again in 2020. He'll be driving the 38 truck. It's a Front Row Motorsports truck. Now, they're technically aligned with DGR Crosley, which is owned, of course, by Todd Gilliland's father, David Gilliland. He's one of the owners of that team, so not too surprising that he's leaving KBM, Kyle Busch Motorsports, and going to go race for one of his father's affiliated teams. But very interesting that Front Row Motorsports, who's been known for, running, 25th in the Cup Series, that they're dipping into the Truck Series now for the first time. So that's pretty interesting. It's a full-time ride, so that's kind of exciting, kind of neat. Todd Gilliland, of course, raced for Kyle Busch last year in the Truck Series. He didn't make the playoffs, but he did win a race, his first career win at Martinsville at the end of the season. But Kyle Busch Motorsport is going with Rafael Lessard and Christian Eckes as their 2 full-time drivers this upcoming season. So that kind of left Todd Gilliland as the odd man out. But of course, he's finding a home with his father's team, aligned, surprisingly, with Front Row. That's pretty cool. It's cool to see another team, getting interested into the Truck Series. I feel like these days, Cup and the Truck Series are both doing their thing. Xfinity Series, oddly enough, is the one that's kind of, I feel like, running into some issues. Chip Ganassi shutting their program down. Roush has shut their program down in recent years. RCR and SHR are starting to cut back on some of the cars they're running. I feel like the Xfinity Series is not in a great place. Meanwhile, the Truck Series, as gritty as it is down there, as grassroots of a feel it kind of is, it's chugging along and continuing to develop new interest over there. And the Cup Series, of course, is the Cup Series. It's still at the top of NASCAR. It's still, as much as NASCAR may be struggling in the modern day, the Cup Series is still clearly the premier racing series in America. But it is interesting to see teams like Front Row Motorsports now taking an interest in the Truck Series. That's pretty wild. Anyway, those are your the two biggest Truck Series news and notes from the last few days. Let's talk about some Cup Series stuff. We'll go and start with the next gen test. I'll finish with the new rules change because we've already hit on the new short track package. It's been reported for a few weeks now. We've talked about it a lot. So I want to focus here on the next gen test. Erik Jones is the third driver to now drive the next gen prototype car. I'm filming this very early in the morning, hence why it's still kind of dark out there. But I'll do a video here in a couple days once these tests conclude. But yes, right now, or today at least, Erik Jones is going to be driving the next gen car at Homestead Miami Speedway. It's a 2-day test. They'll be testing today and tomorrow. And yes, this is the exact same car that RCR actually built, that we saw Austin Dillon test, and also Joey Logano test. Pretty interesting that NASCAR's had Austin Dillon, a Chevy driver, Joey Logano, a Ford driver, and now Erik Jones, a Toyota driver, be selected as the first 3 drivers to test this car. I think that's, how NASCAR's keeping it fair. That being said, this test here at Homestead Miami might be the most important test of the 3 we've had so far. Austin Dillon tested it at Richmond, which is a 3/4 mile, kind of a short track, I guess. And then Joey Logano tested it at Phoenix, which is a 1 mile, very flat oval. This is the first test now at an intermediate track. This is the first test at a 1.5 miles. And the reason I say this is the most important test, I'd say, is because there are more 1.5 mile type tracks than any other type of track on the NASCAR schedule. Think about it. This crazy 2019 low horsepower, high downforce package we saw this last year was created to make the racing better at the intermediate tracks because there are so many of them on the schedule. NASCAR needed to make those races more entertaining. Like it or not, but tracks like Texas, Kentucky, Kansas, Charlotte, Chicagoland, Homestead, Atlanta. Man, we've got a lot of cookie cutters. Like it or not, those tracks aren't going anywhere. NASCAR maybe will cut one of the Texas dates, for example, but we're still going to go to Texas at least once a year. There's still a lot of 1.5 miles out there. So this test, today and tomorrow, is very important. I'll be interested to see what they do with the spoiler. Remember, at Phoenix, the first day, they tested it with a large spoiler. The second day, they cut that spoiler down real small and they tested it with a smaller spoiler. I'll be interested to see what they do here at Homestead Miami Speedway, but like I said, I'll do another video here in a couple days once the test is over. We'll analyze what we see, because apparently they're letting some fans and some media actually into this test for the first time. They really have shut a lot of people out from the first 2 tests. That's another thing I'm a little concerned about. Erik Jones being the test driver, I like Erik Jones, but I don't think Erik Jones is the kind of guy who's really going to speak honestly about what he thinks of this car. He's too young, he's not established enough. That was the problem when they had Austin Dillon test the car at Richmond. He didn't really say anything noteworthy about the car at all. He basically just said what NASCAR told him he could say. When Joey Logano drove the car at Phoenix, he was a little bit more honest. He had a few more, specific things to say, things that maybe some fans would react to differently than others. He clearly wasn't going off of just a script that NASCAR gave him. Joey Logano, who's a champion of the sport, he's still pretty young, but he's technically a veteran now. He's been around a while. He's not scared of NASCAR, I'd say. Joey Logano was a little more honest and upfront about details regarding the next-gen prototype car. I get the impression Erik Jones is going to be a lot more like Austin Dillon. He's too young. He's not established enough. He's just going to tell everyone what NASCAR says he can tell everyone. So we're not really going to get, I think, honest feedback about what this prototype car drives like, anything specific about maybe NASCAR's direction regarding downforce, regarding horsepower. I don't think Erik Jones is going to give us any real insight on that front. So that's a little... NASCAR made the right choice here, because clearly NASCAR doesn't want anything to get out that they don't want to get out, so they made the right choice. If they, say, put, Kyle Busch in the car this weekend, Kyle Busch would speak his mind if he liked it or didn't like it. NASCAR's going the safe route here by putting Erik Jones in the car, a guy who's going to not say anything controversial. He's going to say exactly what NASCAR wants him to say, and from a fan's perspective, from media perspective, it's not that exciting, not that interesting, but it's the safe bet from NASCAR. They learned when the car tomorrow was announced and it was leaked at first, and the details, the way the car looked, everything was leaked before it actually hit the track. Fans, man, it was an uproar. It was an issue, a PR nightmare of sorts. But so NASCAR's learned from kind of the issues they had with the car tomorrow unveiling. They've learned their lesson, and they're taking things a lot more carefully here with the next gen car, which is very smart, but also kind of frustrating, because I want to hear what the drivers really think about this car, and I just don't think Erik Jones is going to give us that kind of information. But anyway, we'll see what the tests look like. They're happening later today, as we speak, so yeah, gonna be exciting. I'll talk about it more later this week. Last thing I want to talk about, I've done a couple videos on this topic here in the last month, but it's finally been confirmed NASCAR is changing the Aero package for 2020, but just at the short tracks and road courses, basically what we've talked about in recent weeks. Adam Stern initially reported it, Corey LaJoie then gave more details on his podcast last week, but now NASCAR has made it official. They're going to a low downforce package for all the tracks 1 mile or shorter, technically I guess 1.1 mile or shorter, plus the 3 road courses on the schedule for this season. The giant spoiler of 2019 will be shrunk dramatically. It'll only be 2.7 inches tall compared to what, I think 8 inches it was this year. They're also making some small changes to the splitter and radiator pan areas under the car, basically. They're basically going back to the 2017/2018 rules package. Yeah, as a matter of fact, on those departments especially, it's pretty much identical. Same horsepower, splitter's gonna be the same pretty much, spoiler's gonna be the same height. So think back to 2017/2018. That's what we're getting on the short tracks and road courses. My gosh, I can't talk, it's too early. Anyway, this is welcome news, I'm sure, to most NASCAR race fans and probably most of the drivers too. The high downforce package with the big spoiler we saw in 2019 did not work very well at the short tracks, at most short tracks I should say. Bristol was pretty good, but most of the other short tracks it really didn't work. Most of the drivers were honest about it, most of the fans were agreed on this, and NASCAR, it turns out, decided they needed to make a change. The low downforce package of 2019 was created to fix the intermediate tracks. That was pretty much made clear from the very beginning that NASCAR's main focus was making, Kentucky, making Texas, making those races a little bit better. Because mile and a half's made up so many races on the schedule, NASCAR needed to make those races more entertaining. That's where the high downforce package came from. NASCAR initially wanted to have a separate package for the short tracks and road courses, but the teams said no. They wanted one uniform package for the entire schedule so that they wouldn't have to spend any extra money on R&D or development and new parts or anything. So NASCAR ultimately abided by that. And they were just kind of hoping for the best in 2019, and I think it became pretty clear towards the end of the year with the race at Martinsville at the end of the year was not very entertaining. The race at Phoenix, neither of those races saw much passing, much battles for the lead, and with those two races being very important races at the end of the 2020 schedule, NASCAR ultimately knew that they needed to make a change to the package, and it sounds like the teams and them came to a compromise. So let's talk about these changes, and this is why this is a huge deal. This is why this is really cool. Because they're basically going back to the exact same rules package we had in 2017 and 2018, the spending shouldn't be out of control. Teams already have plenty of knowledge about this package, so the R&D spending shouldn't be too hefty. So the fact that NASCAR is going to be able to improve the racing at the short tracks and it shouldn't cost the teams much more money at all, I think this is a win-win for hopefully the teams, hopefully the fans, and it's a win-win-win because the drivers, I think, are going to like this a lot more as well. With the 2020 schedule shakeup, half of the races in the playoffs this year are at short tracks or the Roval, road course. So with half of those important races being at these shorter tracks, NASCAR knew they needed to make a change. I think the teams ultimately knew it too, and that's why they were able to come to a compromise on this, but really great for the fans that they did. I still don't really like how it feels like NASCAR and a lot of the race teams are still kind of just making stuff up as they go along, but they made the right change here, and I do really appreciate their flexibility. That's something new. Since Brian Francis left the sport, it sounds like the leaders of NASCAR are really listening and really watching and are trying to actively improve the sport on a weekly basis. They're not just looking, hey, 10 years chunks, 10 years chunks. They're looking almost at a weekly basis. What can they do to make the racing better, to make the fans, the sponsors, the drivers, everyone, what can they do to make everyone more happy or happier? So I do appreciate their flexibility, but it does kind of seem unorganized at times. Steve O'Donnell had this quote to say, kind of summarizing the new rules package and why they feel like they needed to make a change for 2020 at the short tracks and road courses. There's no package that is one size fits all, which we knew, but you try to implement something where the focus needed to be on the intermediates. So I think we learned that we can move the needle on those tracks. We knew from past experiences that we had a rules package that worked well for road courses and short tracks, so the thought was, let's combine both of those and see where we go. The good news for the future car is that it has that built in already, which will be a bonus based on what we've learned. So we were able to take that to the future, but also deliver in 2020. Interesting possible hint about the next gen car he gives there. Next gen car is supposed to be more cost effective for the race teams. Maybe they're looking at this type of stuff already. What's a small change they can make between short tracks and intermediates on the next gen car that isn't going to cost the teams a whole lot of money. Again, no specifics being provided there, but it is good to know that it sounds like NASCAR and the race teams are on the same page. They agree now that there is no one size fits all package. You have to make small adjustments here and there when you go to a short track versus when you go to an intermediate, and it sounds like they're trying to make that as efficient as possible when it comes to the next gen car, because that next gen car is supposed to be more cost effective, and I think that's going to be really important because you want to be cost effective, but you don't want to sacrifice the racing, the product. You want the fans to be happy because first and foremost, the fans are what drive the sport. And I'm happy that NASCAR and their leadership, I think, really take that to heart and are really understanding that and really get that right now. So I'm optimistic for the future of NASCAR. Lots of stuff on today's episode, lots of things we had to catch up on, but let me know what you think about all these stories, all these topics. Are you excited about Kraus? Are you excited about Todd Gilliland? What do you think about the next gen test? Obviously, by the time you're watching this, I'm sure the test is already happening. I'm sure they're already posting photos online and everything, so I'm sure opinions are going to be flying off the walls here. But what do you also think about this new rules package change for 2020? I'm excited for it. I think a lot of other people will be too. So 2020 is going to be a great year, I think. The intermediates are going to be fun, and the short tracks are going to be as great as ever, so it should be a great year. Anyway, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new. We talk about NASCAR like this multiple times a week, every single week. Off-season, regular season, playoffs, does not matter. We're talking racing over here. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram for extra bonus stuff over there. I like to share my opinions on Twitter if you want more of a look into my personal life. That's my Instagram, that's mainly what that's for. A lot of traveling these days, so that's been kind of fun. And of course, a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. I've been moving lately. I'm still in the process of kind of restructuring how I do my Patreon, but I really do appreciate all of the support I get from all of these amazing Patreon supporters every single month. Really helps out a ton with this show, especially with all the moving, with all the chaos. Really nice that these guys continue to stick it out with me and continue to support the show. Really means a lot. We'll be back in a couple days talking about the next gen test, and of course, any other big news that comes out between now and then, we'll be covering that as well. Thank you all a ton for watching, and I will see you again very soon. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.